She came home with a bruise on her hip and told me she slipped on the stairs at work, but she works at a front desk and barely leaves her damn chair all day. That's what kicked off the itch in my brain. Not the actual bruise. People fall. That's normal. But the way she said it, too fast, too rehearsed, like she had practiced it in the car on the way home. And then she made sure to flash it just enough when she changed out of her clothes, like I was supposed to see it. I wasn't even in the room when she changed, which was strange on its own. That's not how we usually operate. I didn't say anything. I let it slide because I thought maybe I was just being suspicious. We've been married 8 years. You don't last that long by accusing someone every time something feels off. But then 2 days later, I found something that didn't belong in our house. It wasn't a phone or a text or some sketchy email. Those are too obvious, too lazy. What I found was wedged under the passenger seat of her car, buried deep like it had rolled under and gotten forgotten. A single movie ticket stub. It was for a weekday, during working hours, and the theater was across town in an area she never goes to. And here's the part that got my heart pounding in my throat. It was for a movie she swore she hadn't seen yet, one we had planned to watch together that coming weekend. So, either she went alone without telling me and forgot, or she went with someone and lied about the whole thing. Did you already see Northline? I asked casually while we were folding laundry later that night. Her eyes flicked to mine just a little too fast before she replied. No, why? No reason. Just figured maybe you'd seen it without me. People at work were talking about it. Nope. Haven't seen it. Waiting for you, remember? I nodded and smiled. Inside, I wasn't just suspicious anymore. I was preparing for war. That weekend, I decided to test something. I left my keys on the table, told her I had a dentist appointment, but I parked my car 3 blocks down and walked back. I wanted to see what she'd do when she thought I was gone. She didn't call anyone, didn't text, didn't even leave the house. She did laundry, played music, and watered the stupid plants on the porch. It almost made me feel guilty, like I was the one sneaking around. But then, a few hours later, something happened that made my stomach flip. A car pulled up. A beige Toyota Camry, older model, nothing flashy. It sat outside for almost 5 minutes before she came out of the house, wearing jeans I hadn't seen before and a light jacket, even though it was warm. She didn't glance around, didn't look nervous. Just walked to the car, opened the passenger door, and got in. She didn't drive. She didn't wave. She just got in like she'd done it before. I stayed low behind the fence and watched them drive off. Then I went inside, not even sure what I was doing. Her phone was in her bag. That's the thing. She didn't even take it. I thought maybe I'd find something in it, but it was clean. No recent messages, no calls, no nothing. But on the kitchen counter, she had left a grocery list. Not unusual. Except halfway down the list was an item I hadn't seen before. Rosewood soap. We don't use that. Never have. And I know damn well she didn't go to any store to buy it, because when I checked the bathroom later that night, there was a fresh bar of it sitting in the soap dish. So I asked her the next morning, did you end up finding that rosewood stuff you put on the list? Oh, yeah, she said, not missing a beat. They had it at the new place by the gym. The one that doesn't carry body care stuff? She blinked at me, and for the first time in our marriage, I saw her calculate her next sentence like her life depended on it. Maybe I'm thinking of somewhere else. That was when I knew. Not suspected. Not wondered. I knew. There was someone else. And it was close. Someone who knew her routine, knew how to keep things quiet. Someone she didn't need a phone to contact because they had worked out a better way. I just had to figure out how far she was willing to go to keep this secret, and how far I was willing to go to expose it. The next Thursday, I told her I was going out of town for a supplier meeting, said I'd be staying overnight near Ashfield because it was a long drive and the meeting would run late. She didn't ask many questions, which told me a lot. Normally, she would have grilled me on who I was meeting, how long it would take, what hotel I was staying at. This time, she just nodded and said, let me know if you need me to pack anything for you. That was her way of keeping things neutral. Helpful on the surface, disengaged underneath. She didn't even ask when I'd be back. I left that morning with a packed overnight bag and my work gear in the truck, just like I said I would. But I only drove 2 miles before looping back and parking in the lot behind the Baptist church near our street. I had borrowed my brother's sedan for the day, something she wouldn't recognize. I waited there, engine off, no music, just watching the street like some low-budget surveillance guy. I felt stupid at first, but not for long. Around 10:40 a.m., her car left the driveway. I let 2 more cars pass before pulling out and following her from a safe distance. She didn't go to work. She didn't go near the gym. She took the back roads through Oak Ridge and ended up pulling into a parking lot behind a strip of small commercial buildings, ones that used to be retail but had been mostly converted into private office rentals. A chiropractor, a therapist, a wedding planner, stuff like that. She parked at the far end near a plain gray door with no sign, just a number. She got out of the car and didn't hesitate. She walked straight to the door, knocked once, and it opened from the inside. She disappeared inside. I sat across the street, watching the door like my life depended on it. 30 minutes passed. Then 45. The door never opened again. No one else came in or out. That was when I decided I needed to know what was behind it. I left, drove back toward the main road, and pulled into the little gas station on the corner. I went inside and bought a water I didn't need, then asked the cashier, "Hey, that gray door 2 buildings down, what is that place?" The kid looked up from his phone. "I think it's one of those massage spots. Not like the chain ones. Private appointment kind of deal." "That's so?" I asked, trying to keep my face blank. "Yeah, they keep the blinds down all the time. Lady who runs it only takes clients she knows. Been there about a year now." I nodded, left the water on the counter, and walked out. A massage place. That didn't mean anything by itself, except it didn't fit. My wife hates massages. Claims they make her tense. Won't even let me rub her shoulders when she's had a long day. And if she'd suddenly developed a taste for them, why lie? Why hide it? Why make sure she had time when I was supposed to be out of town? Back in my borrowed car, I wrote down the address and made a few notes in the glove box. I didn't go back home that night. I really did get a hotel room, just not in Ashfield. I checked into a place 20 minutes outside the city, turned off my phone, and sat with my thoughts for hours. I didn't cry. I didn't punch walls. I just sat there, trying to decide what kind of man I was going to be now that I knew something was broken and it wasn't going to fix itself. The next morning, I drove home like I had just come back from a long meeting. I walked in, kissed her on the forehead, and said, "It went fine. I'll update you later. I'm beat." She didn't push. She just smiled and said, "Glad it went okay." I went straight to the bedroom, locked the door, and took out the receipt I had gotten from the hotel. I tucked it into my sock drawer, just in case I needed to prove anything later. Then I lay down and stared at the ceiling. I couldn't prove anything yet, not directly. But I knew. I knew by the way she had already changed the sheets that morning. I hadn't even told her I was coming home early, but the bed was freshly made with the backup set, the one we usually only used when guests stayed over. I didn't say anything about that either. Later that evening, while she was out picking up groceries, I searched the laundry basket and found something she had clearly meant to keep hidden. Tucked underneath some old towels was a washcloth wrapped around a small plastic bag. Inside the bag was a bottle of massage oil. Rosewood scent. That same soap she had pretended to buy from a store that didn't sell any of it. When she came home, I handed her the bottle and asked, "Is this for your mysterious shoulder tension or someone else's?" Her face froze for half a second before she blinked and said, "Why are you going through my stuff?" "Answer the question." "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, walking past me like I hadn't said anything at all. I stood in the hallway, watching her unpack groceries like we were just another couple having just another evening. But I knew right then, this wasn't a one-time thing. This wasn't harmless. This was the kind of lie that spreads like a crack in a wall. If you ignore it, it takes the whole damn house down eventually. And I wasn't going to let that happen without a fight. I waited until the following Saturday to bring it all out. I wasn't trying to calm down. I wasn't waiting for a perfect moment. I just needed to make sure I wouldn't lose my head and that she wouldn't have a chance to twist anything around. I had everything lined up, ticket stub, hotel receipt, rosewood oil bottle, all of it in a shoebox I placed on the kitchen table that morning. I didn't say a word while she made coffee or looked through the fridge. She asked if I wanted eggs, and I said no. I just sat there watching her, the box sitting right in the middle of the table between us. She finally noticed it after setting down her cup. "What's this?" she asked, not looking up yet. "You tell me," I said, folding my arms and keeping my voice level. She opened the box, pulled out the items one by one like she was handling something she didn't recognize, then looked at me. Her face didn't show panic. It showed confusion, which made me angrier than if she'd just confessed. It meant she was trying to figure out how much I knew and how much she could still lie about. "I don't understand what this is supposed to mean," she said, placing the rosewood oil on the table in front of her. "It means I know about the massage place." I know you were there during work hours. I know you're seeing someone who doesn't want you using your phone when you go to them. I know the lies you've told me weren't even good ones, but I let them slide because I didn't want to believe it. But I'm done pretending now." She stayed quiet for a while, eyes on the box like it was going to change shape and make her life easier. Then she looked up and said, "You've been spying on me." "No. I've been living in this house with you while you go around acting like I'm some dumb dog who doesn't notice when his leash gets shorter. I saw the ticket. I watched you walk into that door on Blackridge Avenue. I saw the sheets change before I came home. I found the oil you wrapped up like it was radioactive. Don't insult me by acting surprised." She exhaled slowly, still not panicked, still calculating. "Okay, I didn't mean for this to happen. It wasn't supposed to go this far. It started as a conversation, that's all. I met him through a mutual client. He's a therapist. He used to rent the office next to mine before he moved across town." "You're sleeping with a therapist?" I asked, my voice lower than I expected. "It didn't start that way," she said, finally sounding a little nervous. "It started with talking. That's all it was. Talking. About stress, life, stuff I couldn't talk to you about." "What can't you talk to me about?" I said. "Try me." "You don't listen, Mark. You act like you do, but you don't. You nod and smile and give your 2 cents, but you're always in your own head, thinking about your business, your clients, your routine. I don't exist in that world unless I bring you food or clean your clothes." That's rich coming from someone who went out of her way to shut me out. You don't get to lie to my face and then tell me it's my fault for not being enough of a mind reader. You could have said something. You could have told me you weren't happy. "I tried," she said, louder now, her voice cracking. "You don't think I tried?" I hinted at it. "I brought up things. I even told you we should try counseling. And you didn't wait for a response. You ran off to someone who knows how to play on people's emotions for a living." She looked away, swallowing hard. It didn't feel like that. It felt like finally being understood. "And what? That made it okay to lie to me every single day? To plan your little visits around when I was out of the house? Did it ever cross your mind that maybe I didn't need to be perfect? I just needed you to be honest?" She didn't answer that. She sat down, resting her arms on the table like the weight of it all was finally catching up to her. Her eyes were glassy, but I didn't care. Not anymore. "So what now?" I asked. "I don't know," she said quietly. "I haven't seen him in 2 weeks. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. You stopped because you got caught, not because you wanted to." She didn't argue that, and that silence was louder than anything else she could have said. I stood up, walked over to the sink, and leaned on the counter. I could feel my pulse in my neck, in my fingers, in my temples. I didn't want to hit anything, but I wanted to destroy something. Not furniture, not the box, just this version of our life that she built behind my back. "I want you out of the house by Monday," I said without turning around. She got up and walked to the hallway, didn't say a word, just disappeared like she had done emotionally months ago. I stayed at the sink, gripping the edge of the counter like it was the only solid thing left. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking about every little moment she had rewritten in her head to make room for him. Every dinner where she smiled, but had somewhere else she'd rather be. Every morning she got dressed just a little nicer than usual and told me it was because she had a client presentation. Every day she sat next to me on the couch while her head was somewhere else. It wasn't just the cheating that got me. It was the quiet disrespect. The way she had managed to keep our life on autopilot while sneaking off to someone else's arms. That kind of calm deception takes practice. The next morning, I got up early, made myself coffee, and went straight to the office to make calls. I didn't tell anyone what was going on. I kept things strictly business. Booked 2 days off from work. Told my assistant to move around my appointments. Then I called my cousin Carl. He's not a private investigator, but he knows how to find people. Carl's the kind of guy who keeps receipts for everything and knows someone in every department in the city. I gave him the therapist's full name, the address of the place, and told him I needed a full picture. Not just who he was, but everything. Where he lived, what his schedule looked like, what kind of car he drove, who he spent time with when he wasn't pretending to heal broken people. Carl didn't ask too many questions. He understood what kind of favor this was. He said it would take him about 3 days. I told him I wanted it sooner. While he got to work, I cleaned out our joint account. I left just enough to cover one more mortgage payment. Then I made an appointment with a lawyer I knew through a client. I told him everything, not the emotional parts, just the facts. The lawyer told me that what she had done wasn't going to get me any kind of legal revenge unless I had photos, messages, or direct proof of physical involvement. I said I didn't care about the courtroom part. I wasn't trying to ruin her legally. I was trying to take back the control she thought she'd stolen. He asked if I wanted to move forward with separation paperwork. I told him not yet. I needed to make sure she felt it first. When I came back home that afternoon, she wasn't there. Most of her stuff was gone from the closet. She had left a note on the kitchen counter that said, "I'll stay at Jin's place for now. Let me know if you want to talk." I didn't text her back. I didn't call. I just tossed the note in the trash and opened the closet to see how much she had taken. All her personal stuff, toiletries, clothes, jewelry, and laptop were gone. But she had left behind the photo frames. The ones with our wedding pictures. I didn't touch them. That evening, Carl called. He drives a silver Honda. License plate is registered to his name. He lives in a rental 2 streets behind that massage place, which makes things easy. Works alone out of that office 4 days a week. Doesn't have any registered employees. Pays for everything in cash. Probably underreporting income. Anything else? He goes for morning runs 3 times a week. Same route. Same time. 7 a.m., right down the trail behind Walnut Creek. I thanked him and told him not to dig further. I had what I needed. The next day, I drove to a storage unit and rented a space under my name. I emptied our bedroom of everything that was mine: clothes, books, tools, personal files, even the coffee machine I had bought and loved more than I ever realized. I took all of it, every piece that didn't have her fingerprints on it. Then I packed a second bag. Not for me. For her. I took her remaining stuff from the bathroom, the coat closet, the laundry room, and shoved it into the bag. I left it on the porch of Jen's place. I didn't ring the bell. I didn't leave a note. Later that week, I drove to Walnut Creek. I parked near the trail, same one Carl mentioned, and waited in the truck. At exactly 7:06 a.m., I saw him. Thin, mid-40s, clean-shaven, decent posture, wearing expensive-looking gear that probably made him feel younger. I watched him jog past my truck. I let him get another 20 feet ahead before getting out and walking toward the trail. "Hey," I called. He slowed down and turned. He didn't recognize me at first. "You're Mark, right?" "Yeah." He stopped jogging. "Listen, I didn't expect this. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get in the middle of anything." "You didn't get in the middle. You were the other end of it." He shifted his weight. "I didn't know she was still married." "That's funny," I said, "because I saw the way you waited for her in your car. I saw how careful you both were. People who aren't hiding things don't act like that. I'm not trying to make excuses." "Good," I said, "because I'm not here for apologies. I just want you to understand something." He didn't respond. "If you ever come near her again, I'll come here next time with more than just words. I'll ruin you professionally. Personally. I'll make sure the people who pay you to listen to their problems know you're the kind of guy who can't keep his boundaries. This isn't a threat. It's a promise." He nodded slowly. "Do we understand each other?" "Yes." "Good." I turned around and walked back to the truck without waiting for another word. She showed up on a Sunday afternoon, 3 days after I dropped her things off. I had been expecting it. She knocked once and then let herself in with her key, the one I hadn't thought to collect yet. She didn't come in angry or loud. She walked slowly, like someone arriving at a place they weren't sure they were welcome in. I was sitting at the dining table sorting through some mail, and I didn't bother to stand up when she entered. She stopped in the kitchen doorway and looked at me like she was waiting for an invitation. "I figured we should talk," she said. I didn't respond at first. I let her stand there until she realized I wasn't going to make it easy for her. "I've been staying at Jen's," she added, like I didn't know that already. "I know." She nodded like that somehow meant progress had been made. "I've had time to think," she said, walking slowly to the other side of the table. "About everything. About what I did. About what it meant. I didn't come here to fight." "I'm not interested in fighting," I said, still flipping through envelopes. "I know you're angry," she continued. "You should be. I made a mistake." "Mistake is the kind of word you use when you spill something or miss an exit," I said, putting the last envelope down. "You made a choice. Over and over again." She sat down across from me and looked at her hands. "I didn't plan it. I wasn't looking for something else. I was just unhappy. For a long time. And I didn't know how to fix it. You could have talked to me," I said. "You could have said something instead of pretending we were fine while sneaking off to someone else." I tried. Maybe not clearly enough. But I tried. And when it started, I didn't expect it to go past a few conversations. I just liked the way he listened. I liked being seen. You were seen every day in this house. You just didn't like who was doing the looking. She flinched, but didn't argue. I never stopped caring about you, she said. You say that like it's supposed to make me feel better. You cared, so you lied. You cared, so you planned around my schedule. You cared, so you didn't stop until I caught you. You cared. I know it sounds hollow now. I know none of it means anything to you anymore. But it wasn't about trying to destroy what we had. I was just lost. Lost people ask for directions. They don't crash the car on purpose. She rubbed her forehead, tired, maybe frustrated, but I didn't feel bad for her. I couldn't. It wasn't in me anymore. I came to ask what you want to do. About us. There's no us. I mean legally. Are you filing? Or should I? I haven't decided yet. Do you think we could try counseling? Just to talk through it? Even if we don't stay together. Why would I want to sit in a room and talk about why you thought it was okay to rip this marriage apart? What good would it do? To understand. To close it properly. You closed it the minute you crossed the line. Now you want a clean ending. I'm not asking you to forgive me. Good, because I don't. Silence sat between us again. She looked around the house like it didn't feel familiar to her anymore, like she was in someone else's kitchen. Maybe she was. I still have some things in the storage closet, she said after a while. Take what you need. Just don't drag this out. I didn't come here to drag it out. You came here because you want to feel less guilty. You want me to say something kind so you can leave thinking you did your best. But this isn't a movie. There's no last-minute fix. You lied to me for months. You lied while eating dinner with me. You lied while we made plans for the future. You slept next to me and made me feel crazy for sensing something was wrong. I'm not going to give you the peace you're looking for. She stood up and nodded. Okay, that's it. What else can I say? Nothing that matters. She walked to the door, then turned back like she wanted to say something else, but thought better of it. She reached for the handle, then stopped. For what it's worth, I never hated you. You didn't love me either. Not really. She didn't respond to that. She just opened the door, stepped out, and closed it quietly behind her. It took about 2 weeks before I felt like the silence in the house wasn't working against me. The first few days after she left, everything sounded louder than it should have. Doors closing, water running, even my own breathing when I lay in bed at night. I wasn't sad the way people expect you to be. It wasn't crying or screaming or breaking down. It was heavier than that, more quiet. Like being forced to sit through a conversation you don't want to have with someone who's already walked out. The house didn't feel empty. It felt paused. I started cleaning out the drawers we used to share. Bathroom first. Her makeup, old receipts, half-used perfume bottles. I put it all in a plastic bin and dropped it off at her friend's house without telling her. I didn't want her coming back to look for anything. I didn't want to hear her voice in my hallway again. The bed stayed half-made for a while. I slept on one side like she might come back, even though I knew she wouldn't. That was just habit. I didn't tell my family much. My sister asked once how things were going, and I said, "We're done." She asked if I wanted to talk, and I said no. There wasn't much to talk about. I'd been through every version of the story in my head already. The version where I had caught it sooner. The version where she told me the truth. The version where I had confronted the guy differently. All of them ended the same. Nothing I could say or do was going to change the fact that she looked me in the eye and still chose someone else. A week after she came by for the last time, I went to the lawyer and signed the papers. No drawn-out battle. No property drama. No spousal support. Just a clean cut, fast and quiet. She signed her part 2 days later and sent it back without a note. I didn't expect one. She was never going to explain it in a way that made it right, and I wasn't going to pretend that some long apology would undo anything. It was already done. My cousin Carl asked if I wanted him to keep tabs on the guy. I told him no. That part of it was over. I didn't need updates or stories about what he was doing or who he was seeing next. I had no interest in following the aftermath of a wreck I didn't cause. Carl respected that and dropped it. That's why I trust him. He knows when to stop. At work, people stopped asking. I had told a few co-workers that things were rocky at home, and when they noticed I stopped wearing my ring, they put the pieces together. No one pried. They just started inviting me to more things. Weekend fishing trips, after-hours drinks, casual lunches I used to skip. I went to most of them, not because I needed company, but because I needed time to pass. And it did. One night, about a month after everything unraveled, I ran into an old friend at the grocery store. He had been through a divorce too, a few years back. We made small talk for a bit. Then he asked, "You doing okay?" I shrugged. "It's not about being okay. It's about being clear." He nodded slowly. "That's when it starts getting easier." And he was right. It did get easier, but not because of time or healing or any of those things people like to talk about. It got easier because I stopped expecting closure from someone who wasn't capable of giving it. I stopped looking for answers in the places where lies were made. The moment I decided I didn't need her apology to move on, everything felt less stuck. I changed the locks. Not because I thought she'd come back, but because it was mine now, and I wanted it to feel like it. I boxed up the wedding photos and put them in the attic. Not to hold on to them, but to keep them out of sight until I decided what to do with them. I wasn't going to burn anything or toss it out in a dramatic fit. I just didn't want to see her smile on my wall while I poured coffee in the morning. The last thing I got rid of was the bed. That one took time. It wasn't about the memories or the symbolism. It was just that I had slept in it for years, and it didn't feel right anymore. So I sold it online and bought a new one. Same size. Nothing fancy. But when it arrived, and I made it up with fresh sheets, that was the first night I slept straight through. Now, the house is quieter in a different way. Not heavy, not paused, just normal. I come home, cook, eat, sit on the couch, sometimes go for a walk. Sometimes I don't. There's no big conclusion to the story. No twist at the end. Just the truth. She cheated. I found out. We ended, and I'm still here. That's what happened. No more, no less. And somehow that's enough.